Oh, hi everybody. Teching 101 here. Shh, quiet. We're in a library. A library that exists on the island of... Yeah, okay, come here. Elbaf! Yeah, ooh. This will be One Piece chapter 1134 review titled The Owl Library. Last time we had a nice wholesome moment where Robin and Saul were reunited on the beach and all the Straw Hats, well not all the Straw Hats, but a lot of the Straw Hats start crying and it's just a nice moment and now nice fairy tale ending, like happily ever after. And then the story ended. But now we see what happens immediately after this. We do not get the continuation of Yamato's cover story. We get a full page color spread of the Straw Hats riding around on a giant robot, and that giant robot is Frankie. He finally did it, ladies and gentlemen. He finally turned himself into a giant mecha Megazord Voltron robot. Good job, Frankie. No, so this is amazing, and Oda did this because Kazuki Yao, the voice actor for Frankie in the anime, has stepped down due to his health. We're gonna find out the new voice actor for Frankie coming up here at Jump Festa in a few days. But yeah, I wish him the best, and I hope that his health, improves and he recovers. But it's such a nice touch that Oda drew this cover spread, because Frankie's my favorite Straw Hat, right? So it's so cool to see Frankie in this awesome scene here, as Oda did that in honor of Kazuki Yao. With that all being said, let's salute this great man with the greatest honor you can give somebody that voiced Frankie. Let's give everybody, let's everybody do a super, okay? Let's do a super here for Kazuki Yao. You ready? All right, here we go. Super! Yeah, there it is. Okay. So, we continue on where we left off, basically. Everybody was crying. Luffy was not crying. He was just kind of laughing at the whole scene. He was just happy to see Robin happy kind of situation. And now, we open with Luffy thanking Saul, but he's doing it in like an old school Yakuza way. It's very similar to the way that when Jinbei arrived at Onigashima before the battle, he was like, putting his palm out like this, and he's like, "Greetings and begging your pardon. I am Jinbei, first son of the sea. I come from Fishman Island on the bottom of the ocean. I may be a newcomer to the Straw Hats, but I hope you'll all welcome me." And so that's Jinbei. He's like the Yakuza aesthetic. He's big boss Jinbei. That makes sense from him. But then we have Luffy trying to do it, and it comes off as like a kid trying to pretend to be like a Yakuza. Like, verily, old man Saul, you have my utmost thanks for defending my fledgling crew member, my family, Robin, from harm all those years ago. I appreciate it. I am forever in your debt. My name, verily, is... And then Robin just cuts him off and is just like, his name's Luffy. And then Saul's like, Derashi. Oh yeah, I know all about Luffy. That guy's famous over there. Well, that was nice. And everyone's like, where did you learn that? And Luffy just says, I didn't learn it from anybody. I just taught myself. Dude, it'd be so funny if Jinbei chimed in at that moment there. Like, we don't even see Jinbei's reaction to that. He's just kind of in the crowd with everybody. But that would have been so good if, like, Luffy is just like, what do you mean? I was doing the thing that Jinbei did back at Onigashima. And Jinbei's just like, all right, Luffy, if you really want to learn how to do that, I could teach you the proper words later. And Luffy would probably be like, nah, it's fine. I think I did a good job. It's cool. So anyway, Saul is just laughing. He's just like, oh, well, you found your family after all, Robin. Oh, I'm so happy that you found a family that cares about you and loves you. And then Robin is like, of course, I found people that were willing to protect me and give their own life up for me, in order to make sure I was safe, calling back Enies Lobby with the I Want to Live scene, and the Straw Hats, jumping into danger to protect Robin. And then we have the Straw Hats all cry again, same ones as before. So like Usopp, Chopper, Nami, Sanji, Frankie, Brook, they all cry. Jinbei, Zoro, Luffy do not. But they all cry again and turn around and just like, of course, Robin, of course we would protect you. To our dying breath, we would protect you. We just saw that in the last arc, too, with Egghead, when Saturn showed up and was about to attack and kill Robin, and Nami was like, protect her, everybody protect Robin, and they just, like, dived right in, like, even though they're dealing with a giant demon yokai spider monster, they were like, all right, we're gonna protect her, we're gonna make sure she's okay, right? So, Luffy's there, and he's like, oh yeah, you betcha, of course we would. Of course we're gonna protect Robin, obviously, aren't we, guys? Yes, of course we will, Luffy, we'll protect her all the time. It's like, okay, yeah, see, we're good, yeah, we're friends, we look out for each other, we're nakama, that's how it goes, right? Okay, so, Saul is like, yeah, well, it's great to meet all of you. It's great to meet Robin's friends. You did a great job reaching Elbaf. Sorry about the whole setup we did earlier with me collapsed on the sand. I've been practicing that with my assistant over here for quite some time. So that wasn't even like a thing that they just threw together at the last minute. It really was something that for years probably, because Saul's been aware, you know, I'm sure he reads the paper, or at least, you know, some information gets to him, and he's the librarian, he's a professor, right? So he was aware that, like, the Straw Hats were out there making big waves in the world. He was aware of Luffy being famous, so obviously he gets news. So he's like, oh yeah, I hope Robin eventually makes it to Elbaf someday. So probably for, like, the last few years now, since he was aware of the Straw Hats' exploits, him and his assistant, her name is, and I think it's A-N-G-E, so it'd be like, Angie? I'm gonna say Angie, because that's like, that's like close enough. Angie. Let's just call her Angie. She was the giant that was like, oh, Saul has fallen down and can't get up, you know? So they had been planning this for a while. Like, it was like, all right, I'm gonna go lay down in the sand over there. Part of my body is gonna be in the water, and you're gonna pretend that I died or passed out. And then I'm gonna, you know, when Robin shows up, I'm gonna be like, ah, you know, that's what I'm gonna do. And so he went through so much planning for this, and it didn't really go anywhere because Robin immediately knew that he was just pretending. So that's kind of funny that it's just like, oh man, I can't wait to see Robin. Oh man, how am I going to, oh man, I don't know what to do. Do I just say hello? You know, I know what I'll do. I'll mimic our first encounter. I'll be face down in the sand. That'll be funny. But he tried. He tried. Saul brings up something interesting here that's cool. I used to be a Marine, so I recognize the status and the power of an Emperor. So, yeah, Saul used to be a Vice Admiral, so he's like, Luffy, you're a Yonko. I know full on what that means. Dude, so Saul was a Vice Admiral 22 years ago when O'Hara was destroyed, right? But he would have been a Vice Admiral for years before that as well. Dude, Saul probably had to deal with Shiki and Rocks, maybe even, if you go back far enough, because he's a giant, so he's been, you know, an older guy. Maybe he wasn't a Vice Admiral back in Rocks' day, but still would have been a Marine. He would have had to deal with Roger. Like, there might have been a situation at one point where Roger was causing, you know, havoc somewhere, and then Garp was like, all right, let's get some Vice Admirals together and go deal with the Roger Pirates, or the Whitebeard Pirates back in their day. You know, the Saul would have been right in the middle of the storm with all that, right? So he's like, I know what it's like to be an Emperor, Luffy. Holy crap, you know, I was, you know, a Vice Admiral during, like, that era, like 20 to 40 something years ago. I mean, that was crazy, okay? So, yeah. Thank you so much for protecting her. Keep it up. Luffy's like, yeah, no problem. She, I got this. Okay. So at this point, Lilith floats up to Saul. By the way, yeah, sidetrack. Lilith and Bonnie were both there. I did a video a little while ago because in the last chapter, we don't see like Bonnie and Lilith in the crowd when the Straw Hats were like crying, but there's one panel where we see a bunch of people on the beach and there were more than just the Straw Hats. So I know it doesn't make any sense for like Bonnie to stay behind because Robin and Bonnie were all like hanging out, like Robin basically adopted her, which is really nice. But maybe Lilith stayed behind in the village, but no, Lilith came as well. So Lilith is there and she activates her Dom shoes and she floats up to Saul. So once again, indicating right there proof the Dom shoes work here in Elbaf. So the Straw Hats should still all have their egghead gear on the Great Eric, right? They changed outfits when they got close to the island, but they should still have all that future gear. They all had a pair of Dom shoes that they were wearing. They should all be able to access that power if they wanted to and float around. Now, obviously, when it comes to like Luffy and Sanji, like Sanji can use skywalk, so it's probably not a big deal for him. But like some of the other Straw Hats, like, you know, Usopp being able to fly around, I think that's a pretty big advantage. So I'm hoping that they do utilize the shoes still. I hope that's not something that's just like, oh yeah, we forgot we had those the entire time. You know, that's a big deal that Oda made a point to mention, okay? They work here on Elbaf, all right? So Lilith floats up to Saul and is like, hey Saul, it's me! Saul's like, do I know you, miss? I don't really know who you are. I've never seen you before. And how the heck are you flying around with some magic kind of shoes? And Lilith is like, oh, I'm Vegapunk. Huh? What's that now? What's that now? Okay, Jinbei, take it out. So, Jinbei takes this big giant container, like this sealed metal container with a Vegapunk sticker on the side of it, out of the rowboat they were coming in on, and Gerd helps as well. Gerd's like, oh, allow me, because she could just like pick it up with like her hand, like her two fingers, like here you go. And so this was something that was not shown in Egghead, which is a little strange. I don't think it was. I guess I'd have to go back and like read the whole chapter to make sure. But this was a like sealed container that like Lilith told Jinbei, or like the Straw Hats, to like, we need to get this out of the lab before it all goes kaput. We need to get this out of here above all things, right? So they brought some stuff with them from Egghead. It was never mentioned before, I don't think, but we have this. And then, she's like, oh, yeah, this is really important. Jinbei is like, well, what's inside of it? It's like, oh, another me, another Vegapunk is inside this. Like, what? Another one? What are we, like, up to 8 now? Like, how many are there? And so Lilith explains that, oh, you don't understand. So inside of this container here, it's not like the other satellites, because the satellites are all robots, all right? That's already been confirmed. Even the ones that look more like humans, I mean, we've seen that with Punk records. They have detachable parts and heads and face plates. They're all androids, essentially, right? That just have Vegapunk's memories. So in the case with this container, this is an actual, like, biological clone of Vegapunk. And it's a really cool thing they bring up here. It's like, hey, this is the Vegapunk that visited Elbaf 20-something years ago. Because when Vegapunk came to Elbaf to look at all the books from Ohara and transcribe them and add them all into his brain, Vegapunk did not just do that in like a day or two. That took him like months to travel to Elbaf and go through everything in the library and log everything into his brain fruit and then leave. If he would have just disappeared from Egghead for months on end, I guess not Egghead at the time, it would have been Punk Hazard at the time, because this was like 20-some years ago. But like if Vegapunk just disappeared from the government's radar, like, yeah, Quasar, I'm gonna go on a company vacation for the next 6 months. I'm taking a leave of absence. All right, Gorosei, here's all the forms later. And then like 6 months he comes back, he's like, how was the vacation, Vegapunk? Oh, it was great. It was fantastic, basking in the sun of Vacation Island. Well, anyway, I'm gonna get back to work now, Quasar. No, it was like, yeah, he disappeared for a long time, so that explains what happened there. So this is a perfect copy of Vegapunk that has been sealed in this container in like cryo sleep, in like a preservation fluid or whatever science fiction, mumbo jumbo you want to use, for like a while now. So a couple of questions. Vegapunk was a lot younger when he visited Elbaf the first time, so that was back like 20-some years ago. He's in his mid-60s when he died, right now, when the Stella died. So he'd be around in his 40s. This is like right around the time he met Dragon, okay? So is this clone of Vegapunk in this sealed like cryo sleep chamber? Is this like is he the same age as the Stella would have been? Like he's in his 60s, he's like an old man when he comes out of this? Or is he going to be like a younger man, like back in his 40s? You know what I mean? Like that's an interesting question there. I guess he wouldn't have had the case is small enough so it's not a giant replica of the head. Oh, that's another fascinating thing, because back at Elbaf, he still had when he visited Elbaf, he still had his massive head. And clearly this container does not have the head in it. So wait a minute, wait a minute. If this is like a perfect clone, a perfect copy of Vegapunk that visited Elbaf 20 years ago, this copy would have also had the brain fruit, the head. Oh my god, I'm so confused right now. Like, okay. So it's like, okay, 20-something years ago, Vegapunk had the giant light bulb head. He's like, Quasar, I need to go to Elbaf and get the books from Ohara, but I can't leave the lab. All right, I'll make a clone. All right, I've made a clone. Great. So clone me. You go out and do it. So did the clone also have a giant head? And then the clone left? And then came back with all the information? And I guess downloaded the information that clone learned into the main Punk records? So there'd be 2 Punk records? This needs to be explained. Not in this chapter, but this needs to be explained at some point, okay? So Lilith says that I cannot take the clone of Vegapunk of the Stella out of this container yet because I don't have the technology to like life support, so it's being like he's being contained inside of the box. He's okay right now, but in order to take him out I need to hook him up to like a bunch of stuff and like revive him or something. So Lilith kind of stays here and it's just like, well, I gotta build a laboratory here on Elbaf. I'm planning on doing that, and then I'm going to eventually revive the Stella. That's my strategy. That's what I'm going to do, right? Bonnie also is there, and she's like, Lilith, if you do that, can you fix my dad? And then Lilith is just like, that's the plan, Bonnie. Don't worry, I got this. Okay. So, couple of questions with this. The idea of Lilith hanging out on Elbaf and making a new lab, like that is something I threw out there for a while. Here's a question. Where did all the scientists on Egghead go? Because they evacuated Egghead. They all got out of there. They got on the evacuation ship. They started going. Saturn ordered that ship to be eliminated. Dory and Broggy showed up. They defeated the government ship so that the civilians, the scientists of Egghead could escape. Where did they escape to? I assume they escaped to Elbaf. I assume Dory and Broggy, like, defeated the government ship trying to sink him, and they're like, all right, just keep on heading that way, and you'll eventually come to Elbaf, and you'll be safe, you'll be all right there. Don't worry about it, because these are fugitive scientists from Egghead. There cannot be a lot of places in the world that these people can go. They can't just dock their evacuation ship at any random port and be like, oh, where's this massive ship of people coming from? Oh, Egghead. Oh, the place that was Buster called? We are probably going to go call the government about that. Hey, a bunch of scientists from Egghead just landed on this island. So I assume they went to Elbaf, and I guess that's not the case because they don't even reference them here. Maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe those were the humans stuck in the forest. I don't know. No, they weren't. They had been there for a while, I believe. But, like, yeah, it's either they go to Elbaf or they just found some random deserted island or some island that's not allied with the world government and they, sought safe harbor there. I mean, that's the only way I can explain that away because, like, the government finds out that these scientists from Egghead are, like, on one of their islands. They're going to go after them. They're going to summon the Marines for them. So I wonder what happened with them. Now, when it comes to reviving Kuma, I'm not really sure where we're going with this because the implication is maybe the technology gotten from the perfect clone of the Stella might also aid Kuma's recovery. The idea is that Vegapunk, I guess Judge as well, I mean, they all worked together in Mads back in the day, are really good at cloning tech. And so you can, like, maybe clone a human and, like, use stem cells and stuff like that. Maybe that could help cure Kuma. I don't really know if I want Kuma's, like, brain to be completely recovered. I feel like, it was his sacrifice and the fact that he's, like, the idea of repairing Kuma to get him back up and moving around again, like, that is easy. Like, I'm sure Lilith could do that, like, just repair, like, the mechanical parts of his body to get him up and moving again, and he's sort of there, like, his soul is still there, but it's just he's brain dead, okay? But this seems to imply that, like, Lilith is going to be able to repair Kuma's brain, which I guess after the self-destruct mechanism, the idea was it, like, completely turned off. Like, it made him brain dead. It shut down his, like, whatever, cerebral cortex. I don't know, brains. But, like, it did something with that. So I don't know what Lilith is indicating here. If Lilith is like, I can just fix up Kuma so he'll walk around, or I'm going to actually bring back his memories. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Bring back his personality and everything. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Saul is still so confused by this. He's just like, well, I mean, if you are Vegapunk, I mean, nice to see you after 20 years. I don't know how you turned into a woman. How did that work again? And she's like, oh, don't worry. There's a perfect explanation for that. Dude, I would have loved Lilith to just, like, rip off her face at that point. Like, oh, don't worry. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, you scientists with your science, it's good to see you. Okay. Okay, Vegapunk. All right, sure. So that's funny. Angie introduces herself. She's the giant there. She's like, I am Saul's assistant at the Owl Library. Apologies for the belated introduction and all that. There's some children that are hanging out next to the beach, and they're like, hey, Saul, can we come over and play again? You took our spot. And Saul's like, oh, yeah, don't worry about that, kids. We're done here. You can come on over and play. And the kids are like, yeah, and they jump out from behind the tree. So this is so funny, okay? So Saul had to, like, he's out hanging out at the Owl Library. He knows Robin's going to be, showing up soon. So he goes over to Angie and he's just like, all right, Angie, this is it. We're doing code purple. This is what we're doing. You run around and say that I passed out. I'm going to pretend to be dead. You kids clear off for like 10 minutes. You hide behind the tree. Okay, this is important. This is important to Professor Saul, okay? And it's like, okay, darn, all right. And then they go over and they hide and it's like the whole setup happened. Oh my goodness. Angie brings up that I don't mean to brag, but this is Elbaf's #1 library and #1 school. So last chapter, we really only saw the Owl Library on the side of the shore of the Warrior Spring, but right next to it is another building that is also like on one of the branches of the Adam Tree of Yggdrasil, and that is called the Walrus School. And there's a big image, a big archway of a walrus there wearing a graduation cap. What are those things called, the graduation cap things? The things with the tassel on it? I don't know, they just called graduation caps. Anyway, that's on there, and there's a bunch of other buildings and like swings, you know, for the kids to like play on, and there's like little buildings that are hanging by vines from like the branches, and it looks like just like the magical treehouse of every kid's dreams, basically, is this school. So they're like, oh, I would love to give you, Angie's like, I would love to give you a tour of the premises, you know, come along. And so the Straw Hats kind of split up here. The kids resume going on the beach and like playing tag and, you know, and everything like that. So Luffy and Usopp and I think it's just Luffy and Usopp initially go running off towards the school. And just like, yeah, that sounds fun, let's go, you know? And it's just like, you might be questioning why Luffy is getting excited about school, but like, it's a really cool looking school. Like, it would have been awesome to attend this school growing up. Like, this place is amazing. Like I said, it's a giant magical treehouse. It's awesome, right? So Luffy and Usopp just start booking it for the stairs up to the school. Saul is there and just like, hey, oh, okay, Angie, you show them around. I'm gonna take Robin right up to the library because I gotta show her all the books. And it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And the Strats are all deciding on like where to go. So Chopper wants to go to the library first. I think Nami is going into the school. And Sanji is going to go with Nami, obviously. Brooke says, oh, schools always make me so nostalgic. Yoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Part of me wonders if that's referencing anything specific, like, did Brooke used to be a teacher back in the West Blue before he joined the battle convoy and before he became a pirate? I don't know why, but I've always pictured Brooke's family like to be like his mother was like a classical music like professional, like she was like a famous like cellist or something like that. Like that's how I always pictured Brooke's like parents. Like he came from like a well-to-do kind of like semi like maybe low-tier noble family or something like that, and so maybe his mother was like a music teacher at some point or something like that. Or he might just be nostalgic for it because he's the oldest Straw Hat. He's 90, and he's just like, yoo-hoo! Oh, I remember going to school back in my young days, back in the West Blue. You know, it might just be from that, but I don't know. Frankie and Jinbei are in the back, and they're like, you know, I'm more interested in this giant tree. So maybe Frankie and Jinbei says the same thing, like, yeah, I'm interested in that too. So maybe Frankie and Jinbei are going to go to the school as well, so they can ask somebody about the giant, you know, world tree, because Frankie doesn't know it's the Adam Tree yet, okay? Luffy knows, because Luffy went down and Loki told him, like, this is the Adam Tree, right? I don't think Luffy told them, well, Luffy's specifically not talking about Loki because of the deal they made, right? So, yeah, I could see Frankie and Jinbei going into the school and asking, like, what's up with this tree? And then, like, you know, they take him over to, like, the, you know, the biologist. We actually are going to see the biologist teacher here in a minute. The biologist teacher is, in fact, Ripley. So, Angie is not Ripley, but we do see Ripley, okay? So, yeah, that's a question that's probably for her the best, or some kind of botany teacher, I guess, but biologist would also fit in that. The kids are dressed up, like one of them has like a Viking helmet and like they're carrying like sticks and they're chasing after Luffy, Zoro, and Usopp. So Zoro's also going with Luffy's group into the school. And so they're like, oh, let's capture the humans and throw them in jail. And then Zoro's like, so should I cut them? And then Luffy and Usopp are just like, hey, no. Usopp's like, no, they're just kids. They're just playing, Zoro. You don't slice them up for real. You know, and Zoro's like, I don't know, man. You know, back when I was growing up in the dojo, you know, that's how we would we would hang out with swords. We'd cut people up sometimes. You know, sometimes, you know, you're a little kid and you just want to play, you just want to sword fight with the sticks. You know, remember that? You know, me and my friends would always get together in my backyard and we'd have we'd pick up a stick and we'd sword fight. And inevitably, you know, my parents would come out or my friends' parents would walk out and they'd be like, hey, put down those sticks. Someone's gonna get hurt. I'm like, oh my God, we're just trying to sword fight here, for God's sakes. You know? So, some of the kids are chasing after Zoro and Luffy and Usopp, pretending to be like, you know, like the giant warrior pirates. And then another group of kids, though, are like, hey, stop that. You're not allowed to hurt the humans. And then so, like, one group of giants are like arguing with the other group of giant kids, and like, and don't make fun of them, and don't call them short. And then Like Zoro calls one of them a brat, and just like, are these brats really the future of the warrior kingdom of Elbaf? And then there's like, hey, don't call us brats. What the hell? Like, that's not cool. You don't talk like that. And then Usopp is like, oh, no, hey, it's okay. You can call us short. It's fine. I mean, it's true. And then, like, more than anything, right, you kids are the next generation of the great giant warriors of Elbaf. I bet when you grow up, you want to travel the seas and pillage and plunder as pirates. Right? And the kids are like, no. What are you talking about? That's dangerous. I don't want to go out to sea. I mean, I don't want to be a pirate. What are you talking about? I don't want to burn villages down. And I don't want to get shot by the Marines or something. That's not cool. I don't want to do that. And one of the voices speaks up at this point, and it's the voice of an adult. And the Straw Hats weren't unaware that there was like anybody around, and it was like, words like that are old-fashioned. And then they're like, wait, who's that? And then the kids are like, oh, you guys should probably move. You're going to get yelled at. And they're like, move? What happened? And so they look down, and they're standing on top of Ripley. Ripley being the biology teacher at the Walrus School. And they're not in the school yet, by the way. They're just like hanging out on the beach still. And Ripley was just like chilling out on the ground, like taking a nap. And without knowing it, I don't know how you do not realize this, but Zoro, Luffy, and Usopp ended up on top of Ripley's chest. And in case you're curious, yes, it's exactly like the scene from Fishman Island with Shirahoshi. Yes, it's exactly like that. Ripley's pretty damn sexy. She's a giant woman. She's got some cool braids, and she's got a tattoo, like a line tattoo that goes right down her face and then right down her chest all the way down her leg. So it's like a cool tattoo that goes all the way down around. Wait a minute. Okay, look, I'm not super familiar with this franchise, but did Oda just draw a sexy gender-bent version of Kratos from God of War? Because, like, I know Kratos has the line tattoo down his face, like, all the way down his body, right? Like, if I'm misremembering what Kratos looks like right now. Maybe Oda was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, just like, there we go. But anyway, this is Ripley. This is the woman that was mentioned at the pub a few chapters ago where Colin, I'm just calling him Colin. I'm just going Angie and then Colin. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Colin was given the basket of like, oh, here's Ripley's like sandwich. Go bring it to her. And then Colin is like, okay, so he's obviously someone that attends the school. So that's why he's going up to the sun lair to give the food to his teacher. So we're probably going to see Colin meeting the Straw Hats probably like in the next chapter or so. By the way, I keep forgetting to mention this. Colin is based off of Vicky from Vicky the Viking, because Vicky the Viking was a show, a cartoon that Oda watched growing up, and that's a huge inspiration to Elbaf. I keep forgetting to mention it because I had never heard of Vicky the Viking, because it was a show that was big in like the 70s, okay? And I'm a 90s kid through and through. I grew up with Cat Dog. Remember Cat Dog? One fine day with a woof and a purr, babies were born that caused a little stir. No blue buzzer, no three-eyed frog, was a canine feline, little cat dog, cat dog, cat dog. Alone in the world with a little cat dog. Out on the road or back in town, all a bunch of, okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna do the whole Cat Dog theme song. But yeah, that's what I grew up with. I didn't grow up with Vicky the Viking. I'm sorry. I'll go look it up and maybe watch some episodes of Vicky the Viking and find out what the references are and everything, but that's who Colin is based off of. Okay. So anyway, yeah, they're standing on top of Luffy's on Ripley's boobs, as you do, and he's like, whoa, how did I not notice this? Just like, yeah. Now, she does not give a shit. She does not care. She's like, oh, it's like, oh, we're sorry for stepping on you. It's like, don't worry about it. You guys are feather light. You're fine. It's all good. But I bet this kind of comes as a shock to you, right? Like, you expected the kids of Elbaf to be all warriors and ready for battle. By the way, Colin kind of was, because Colin, when he was talking to Shanks, was like, is it going to be a war, Shanks? Are we going to war? And we see some of the kids on the beach, like, playing at war and, like, pretending to, like, be Vikings and, like, capture the Straw Hats and everything. But, it's kind of like a thing where it's like, oh, hey, they're very level-headed in the sense of, like, yeah, we were just playing pretend, we're not actually going to go out to sea and be, like, pirates. Like, that's not cool, right? So, Ripley says that, yeah, the fearsome legends of the giant warrior pirates, you know, that was really important, but those were 100 years ago, you know? Generations have, you know, changed since then. You know, this current generation of kids don't view those exact same thing as the elders did as important, right? So it's like a different viewpoint, moving more towards studying and education, which is why the Owl Library exists, and the Walrus School, which didn't always exist on Elbaf. Saul founded these institutions about 20 years ago, and it was at the behest of King Harold, and we're going to find out about him in a moment. But like, yeah, it's like these new giants that are growing up are more about education and learning about biology and history, and they don't want to go out to sea and just fight. Now, Ripley also brings up here that she is a member, she is like one of the last generations of the giants that were like the warfaring giants, right? Now, Hyrudin's group is about 60 years old now. Well, Hyrudin's 80, Gerd is in her 70s, Rode and Goldberg are both in their 60s, Loki is in his 60s. So that was a generation a little bit further back, like the middle generation, as it were. And Hyrudin is like, oh, we're gonna find the new, you know, giant warrior pirates, you know? But when it comes to the, you know, the brand new, the Gen Alpha generation, I guess, of Elbaf, as it were, they're moving away from all of that. So I don't think, you know, these kids, when they grow up, they're gonna found like the new giant warrior pirates or something. No, it's like they're gonna do something different with their lives, okay? And Ripley is mentioning that, like, you know, she's like in the middle of this, where she's like, I remember back in the day when the giant warrior pirates were like warfaring, and then, you know, as it happens, you see the generations change as it goes because of how long giants live. So yeah, it's a really fascinating thing here. She mentions like foul mouths and aggression, plundering, war. Those are relics of a bygone era now. Welcome to Elbaf, Straw Hats. I understand that you were a little bit behind the times. She holds them up. She holds up Luffy and Usopp and is like, you know, King Harold talked about, our late King Harold talked about seeking trade with other nations, not declaring war on other nations. And those were the dreams and wishes he lived by. And it clashed with the elders like Yorl and Jarl, I would imagine, would have really not liked that. The idea of just like, no, we're the warland, damn it. We do war! That's what we did! My grandpappy did war, and his grandpappy before him did war, and his grandpappy, well, I think he was a cobbler, but before that, no, we also did war! It was always about war! And then King Harold is like, no, how about we educate the youth and like, have them, you know, venture off into the world and learn new trades and skills. No, it's all about the war, damn it! Kids these days. So whenever we do see Mountain Beard, who's like 400 years old, he is going to be literally, as Ripley said, a relic of a bygone era at that point, right? Usopp mentions, oh, King Harold? I've heard that name. And just like Angie steps up and says, yeah, he was a visionary, you know, he was a king that had all these different ideas to revolutionize our country. However, he was slain halfway through achieving his dream by his own flesh and blood, Loki. So this is when the Straw Hats are learning about Loki. Now, Luffy obviously already knows about this, and we don't really get a moment with Luffy being like, oh yeah, Loki, that's crazy, who's that now? We don't get any scene like that. But Usopp is learning about him here. You know, he was a blood-crazed, you know, prince that, like, killed his own father. And, of course, after that, we're not going to recognize Loki as the new king. So Angie confirms Elbaf has no sovereign right now. There's no king of Elbaf, which I feel like that's a problem. Now, we don't know when King Harold was murdered or killed or died. We don't know the whole story behind that. You know, we know Loki's been chained up for 6 years, so we could assume 6 years ago is when that occurred. But no king for 6 years, man. That's something that's a little dangerous without, like, proper leadership. Now, I guess each village has their own, like, elder and stuff like that. And King Harold was, like, the ruler of all of Elbaf as, like, one thing. I'm assuming that's how it worked. I'm not really sure. Although something we're going to see at the end of the chapter kind of contradicts that. We'll get to that in a moment. But, like, yeah, that was kind of the setup on what happened here, and it's weird because, like, I don't know if the government ever found out that Elbaf didn't have a ruler right now. Maybe it's like, oh, they're weak, let's attack now. You know, they don't have proper leadership or something. So it's a little dangerous to just not have a ruler, but yeah, okay. At this point, Ripley brings up, hey, Luffy, why aren't you in your form where your hair and your clothing is all white and everything like that, like on your wanted poster, right? You know, I was really looking forward to seeing it. And Luffy's like, oh, that's when I'm at my freest. That's the same thing he said to Bonnie. Like, Bonnie was like, hey, I saw your wanted poster. Why do you have white hair when you don't now? He's like, oh, I'm at my most free in that form. And Bonnie's like, huh? And Ripley's like, huh? Okay. Well, you do realize you resemble an ancient warrior. She doesn't go into the whole story of the sun god, but she does acknowledge that there was a legendary warrior from the fables of old Elbaf. She mentions, I'm the last generation of Elbaf warriors. So she was like one of the last generations, probably part of Hyruden's generation, I would assume, around his age, that went out to actual plunder and pillage and stuff like that. So, like, she seems kind of like enamored a little bit with the idea of like the legendary warrior. And she was like, oh, I really wanted to see you in that form. Because, like, you imagine for like when giants back in the day, when they would charge into battle and like shout and scream, like the image of the sun god Nico would be in their minds when they charge, like, for freedom, for the sun god, the greatest warrior ever, which might have been Joy Boy from back in the day, right? They're thinking of him. And so Ripley was like, oh man, that was the image that was in our minds when we charged into battle. I really wanted to see that form. And Luffy does not go into Gear 5th right there, but at some point he's going to, during the arc, I would assume, and we're going to see what he looks like. But that's one, I mean, we're going to see Ripley's reaction to what Luffy looks like. But that's, you know, like, that's a whole, like, subplot of this, really. Like, the giants worship the sun deity. Luffy is the sun deity. Bonnie can assume the same kind of form. Road claimed to be the sun god, and Loki claims to be the sun god. So there's like a whole bunch of different things we could do with this here. So it's cool to get, like, I think we're gonna get Ripley as like, so I think what we're doing here is like, we got like a different giant's interpretations of this. So this was Ripley's interpretation of like, oh man, I really want to see the sun god. There might be some other giants out there that don't believe that Luffy is the sun god, or he's like a false god or something like that. We can go different directions with this. It'd be really cool, right? Okay, so cutting away from the school, we now go over to the Owl Library, where Saul is discussing about, you know, all the books that were salvaged, stuff we already knew about, that like, oh, I asked Hyruden's crew to go to Ohara and hoist all the books out of the lake, so we saw Gerd and Hyruden and Goldberg there, but not Road back in the day, like saving the books. That's who were actually there when Vegapunk and Dragon were visiting the bombed out ruins of Ohara. So he just kind of brings that up. So they're about to walk into the library, and Robin is holding a book in her hand, a book on archaeology. And Saul is like, hey, just Robin, just careful when you walk into the library with that book. Just watch the book. And Robin's like, okay. And then she walks in, and the book just gets huge, like immediately, like so big. She like you know, she just drops it, and this giant book, like bigger than a person, lands on the ground in front of her. And then we walk in, and we see the Owl Library in its full view, and it's so awesome. I would love to visit this library. You see the carefully constructed like shelves with all the books, and they're like, it's kind of like, you know, it's not like a straight, like, you know, line of like a library, not like your typical, you know, local library. This library is like multiple tiers and stairs going up, and random library, like random bookshelves jutting out here, and there's like balconies, there's a branch, there's a giant owl asleep in the library. I'd like to go to a library and see an owl. I like owls. But anyway, yeah, Saul walks in and he's like, Dara-shi-shi-shi. See, whenever you walk in this place with a book, the book gets huge. This is the mysterious Owl Library. No more further explanation on how that works. Is it a devil fruit? Is it magic? Does it have to do with the giant owl? I have no idea, but that's how it works. You walk into the library and the books get huge. Hey, that actually, that answers a question that like a lot of people had, like, you know, how is Saul reading these books when they're so tiny, especially when like Dorian Broggy specifically brought up with the newspapers, like, we can't read this, it's too small. So like, that's how it works. You take a book in here and it gets huge. Probably, once again, something to do with the magic tree. Probably something to do with the magical Yggdrasil Atomwood tree, I'm assuming, is probably what that happens, right? So, Saul walking in, like, Saul doesn't have a devil fruit ability or something. Maybe it does have to do with the giant owl. I don't know, maybe it's like Wan Shi Tong from, you know, Avatar or something. And just like, I am Wan Shi Tong, he who knows 10,000 things. Why are you here in my library? You know, it's like, oh, it's okay, just go back to sleep. Oh, okay. And like, here it is. Robin has a flashback to Ohara when Clover was first showing her the library there, and then Saul is like, every single book from Ohara, Robin, we saved every single one here in this library, where nothing bad will ever happen to them. You know, Oda could be really cruel and have this library burned down too by the end of the arc. I'm just saying, like, probably not, but I'm just saying, like, you know, like, oh no, the tree's falling out of the library again. Why does this keep happening to my books? You know, like, yeah, I don't think we're gonna do that. Oh my god, that would be so mean, considering Robin is, like, crying here. She's like, oh my god, all the books are saved. I don't know how many more tears Robin has left in her, but she's crying again. So, that's the Owl Library. Bonnie is there, Robin, Chopper, and Lilith are there. And I'm assuming the rest of the Straw Hats all went into the school. Because there's only, yeah, Bonnie, Robin, Chopper, and Lilith. Just the 4 of them in the library right now, okay? I also want to see what Chopper thinks of the books. Because he wanted to go in there for a specific reason to look at the books. And maybe Chopper will see some books on medicine or some such like that. We'll find out some more information. But we actually cut away now. Because the rest of the chapter does not involve the Straw Hats, we now cut away back down to the Underworld, Underland. We cut back to there, the primordial realm of the dead, where Loki is still chained to a tree. Probably going to cut back and see him still chained to a tree every now and then, but he's chained to a tree. And he's having a conversation with somebody over a Den Mushi. We see a very specific, like, fur-covered, like, woolly Den Mushi. That is a cold-resistant type, because remember, Den Mushi was mentioned in Impel Down, the ones that you couldn't put Den Mushi in level 5 in the freezing hell because they can't survive the cold, like actual snails. So Oda created, like, the woolly fur version of the Den Mushi, and that's really cool. Voice recognition and cold-resistant type, because Loki can't even move to, like, pick up the Den Mushi and use it, so it's like, oh no, somebody was nice enough, maybe one of the humans that were, like, skulking around. Maybe one of the humans found this Den Mushi in the woods. It's like, oh, thankfully, a cold-resistant and voice-activated Den Mushi that we can just put right next to Loki so he can just activate it with his voice and he doesn't need to move. Like, okay, the fuck is that doing there? Like, how did that get there? Like, one of the humans didn't put it there, then who put that there? So Loki is having a conversation with somebody named Mosa. Not Moda. Moda would have been the farm girl from Lelucia, wherever that place is. But Mosa, okay? We have no idea who Mosa is. We do not see their face. We don't even really know from their speech. There's something about their speech that might indicate that they're nobility or have some connections to nobility, but we know nothing else about Mosa, okay? So Mosa's on the Den Mushi and is like, hey, I'm sorry. And they seem rather, like, somewhat meek and maybe demure a little bit there, just kind of like, hey, I'm sorry, Loki, am I bothering you? Am I disturbing you? And Loki's like, no, I'm good. I like a good disturbance. I'm not going anywhere. I got nothing but time to kill strapped to this damn tree. Anyway, that moment of true fear you mentioned before, is that what motivates you? Yes, even when I think about it, I can't stop trembling. I get you. It's so frustrating. You know, we've been friends for a long time, Mosa. You know, but for one reason or another, I've never actually seen your face. If I was there, I would have murdered every single person around, and I would have slaughtered the whole place. And Mosa is like, I don't know, I don't want that exactly. I think that's going a little bit too far. Oh no, Mosa, you're too naive. You gotta stamp them out without mercy. You see someone doing that shit, you gotta wipe them out without a chance for them to get any payback or revenge against you. Thank you for your counsel. Thank you for your advice, Loki. You know, you use pretty mean words, rather harsh, but I can see the kindness shining through you. Hey, don't call me kind. I'm not kind. That kind of crap won't fly with me. I'm not nice. I'm the meanest SOB you've ever seen. Can you please not shout? Shut up! Just you wait until I'm no longer shackled here. And then that's where that conversation ends. Okay, so, he uses a certain honorific for Mosa, which seems to indicate, Ko is the honorific, which seems to indicate that maybe Mosa might be nobility. And from the conversation, we can kind of piece together that something happened in Mosa's past where something horrible occurred, something awful occurred to Mosa. That involved probably like a lot of people around them, like maybe murdering their family or their friends or their lovers or whoever. Like a lot of people, you know, took away something that Mosa loved. And so they're talking about the ideas of revenge and you know, and fear and stuff. So in the case with Loki, it's like, oh, that fear that you felt at that moment, does that still motivate you? And Mosa says, yes, that's the only thing I can think about it. Can't make me stop trembling. And Loki's response is similar. He's like, oh, I get you. It's so frustrating. So something else similar happened to Loki here. And Loki's like, you know, if I was the one in your position, Mosa, I would have murdered everybody around you. So let's say Mosa had, you know, like a lover or something, and then some people killed that lover. Mosa would not have retaliated. Mosa did not, like, do anything against that individual. Loki is saying, like, oh, if I was there, I'd have murdered everybody that was involved in that. I'm just using that as an example because we have no idea. So that's where I mean, like, Mosa is way more, like, kind of meek than Loki is. Loki is more of just like, you know, taking charge of just like, I'll tell you what, Mosa, you can't let anyone survive when they do you wrong. You gotta wipe them out, you know, like that kind of shit, right? Now, why do I have a feeling like this Mosa, and I feel like Mosa might not even be like their real name, like they're using like a pen name or like a username online or something like that, right? I don't know. You know, it probably isn't, but you know, Loki kind of reminds me of Doflamingo a little bit, just in like his facial expressions and the way he talks sometimes. Wouldn't it be weird if it was Doflamingo that he was talking to? You know? Because like, a tragic past and like everybody like, you know, with Doflamingo being like, you know, tied up and then like his whole family burned and everything, like I'm gonna murder you all, right? But that doesn't fit Doflamingo's personality because Doflamingo actually did get kind of revenge on everybody. It wouldn't have made sense for him to be like, oh, I don't want that, I don't want revenge. So that wouldn't be that, unless like whoever this Mosa person is, if it was Doflamingo, they're like pretending to have a different personality for the sake of like whatever, like, you know, not really, this is not really their true personality, might be something. I don't know, but if it isn't, I feel like it's going to be somebody we know. I feel like it's not just going to be like brand new character that was just introduced. This is going to be somebody else going on here, right? So I have really no idea, like we have no idea who Mosa is or anything. Yeah, connection to Loki. At some point they began talking with one another. I don't know if they started talking after Loki was chained up or if they were like corresponding like beforehand, because Loki says, you know, we've been friends for a long time, but for one reason or another we've never actually met face to face. Well, I mean, if he was chained up for the last 6 years and they just started talking within the last 6 years, that's the reason they haven't met. So that seems to indicate like they've known each other for longer than that, even before he was chained up, but they still haven't met for whatever reason. So yeah, I don't know. Either that or Loki's getting catfished right now. Loki's getting catfished right now. He's just like, man, your webcam doesn't work, Mosa. Why can't I see your face? It's been broken for so long. It's like, okay. Just like, you want me to send you money? Oh, well, as soon as I'm chained to this tree, but as soon as I get out of here. It's like, maybe. Okay, at any rate, that's that conversation. And Loki is like, you know, once I get out of here, it's gonna be crazy. So, last double-page spread of the chapter. We cut back to the Western Village where the pub is and where Dory and Bragi and all the giants are at, and they're like, hey, why isn't the feast started yet? Oh, the Straw Hats are not here. We're just getting drunk. It's like, all right, you drank too much? All right, you're pre-gaming too hard. And like, whatever, glug, glug, glug. So we see Dory and Bragi and all the giants at the bar getting wicked wasted. We cut over to the castle. We saw the castle in the Western Village, okay? Now, we don't know whose castle this is. I assumed it was like, this is like one village. So this is one village castle. So maybe, you know, Mountain Beard lived there or something like that. Like every village has their own elders, has their own rulers and stuff like that. And like maybe if there was a big castle, like for Harold, it'd be somewhere else. I'm thinking this was Harold's castle, okay? Before we even talk about what is happening right now, we go into the castle. We see a throne room. We see the throne room, okay? We see a big giant throne, okay? And a black bolt of lightning strikes the castle, just like when the Gorosei were summoned at Egghead. And then out of that comes a summoning circle, the exact same kind of summoning circle with the Gorosei. The one exception is this one does not have any numbers in it. So all the Goroseis, like, you know, Saturn's had a 5, and when we saw all the other Gorosei land, they had a 4, 3, 2, 1. They all had numbers. I guess Garling is the new number 5. I guess he'd be number 5, I guess. But this one does not have a number, so it's not the Gorosei. Not the Gorosei arriving. That's like their signature thing when the Gorosei arrive. I bet Oda's going to have fun with the summoning circles, like whatever symbols are in there or not in there, we can indicate who it is, right? So it's not the Gorosei. It's 2 hooded individuals that are landing at the castle. One of them is Shanks' brother, which is Shanks' evil twin, which we've already... I love how everybody's already established that. The exact same, by the way, panel like when Shanks met with the Gorosei back in chapter 907, 908, like during Reverie. It was like, I want to talk to you about a certain pirate. It's like the exact same angle from the right side of this person's face, so we don't see the left side, which is where Shanks' scar is usually at, is usually on the left side. So that could indicate, yeah, the Shanks that maybe the Shanks we saw at the Gorosei, maybe that was really Shanks, and this is his brother. He has a twin. That's already been established. We're learning a lot about the Figarland family. We had that shadowy individual in that one spread with the 12 people that could find the One Piece that also looks a lot like Shanks and has a sword similar to Shanks. So, you know, there's 2 Shankses, all right? So we see Shanks' hot brother and also another hooded individual. And this person, you know, based off of their eye and, like, you know, the eyelashes and stuff, we can assume this person is a woman. We see some tufts of hair coming off, and we see a bandaged, like, masked face. You know, like mummy, like a gauze bandages on her face, okay? And that's all we get. We see Shanks' hot brother and... maybe Shanks' hot sister. I hesitate to say for certain. I do not know. Maybe this is Shanks' sister. I'm not going to say anything yet because we do not know. We do not know. But, you know. All right, so that's the end of the chapter here. Now, the Giants seem completely unaware of what the fuck just happened, by the way. So how the hell did a lightning bolt just in the castle? And, like, could they have just done that whenever? These are clearly 2 members of the Gods Knights. That's clear. Like Shanks' hot brother is clearly, like, after Garling got promoted, if he was already a member of the Gods Knights, he would have probably been promoted. So, like, Shanks' brother's probably the new Supreme Commander of the Gods Knights, and this woman is probably another member of the Gods Knights. Maybe not a member of the Figarland family, maybe a member of the Manmeyer family or one of the other. We gotta learn about all these other families. There's so many of the families of the 20 we don't know about. You know, like, we only know about, like, I think 4 or 5 right now, and I don't even think that many. We don't even know Charlos and Roswald's family name yet. We know Don Quixote, we know Nefertari, but they left. We know Manmeyer, we know Figarland. I guess that's kind of it. I mean, I guess you could say the Gorosei's, you know, family names as well. So, like, I guess if you include that, like, you know, Top Man and stuff, like the Top Man family and stuff like that, maybe. But we need to know more about the Gods Knights, and so this would be a good way to introduce them, right? But, yeah, how the hell did they just warp in there all of a sudden? Like, that could have happened at any time? So here's the kicker. Here's what I'm thinking happened. This is a throne room. You see a giant throne, and there is a big missing chunk of this throne. Now, maybe that happened when the lightning struck and it destroyed the throne room, and so maybe that's why, because the walls look all beaten and, you know, battle damage, like a big battle occurred in this throne room at one point. Maybe it was just the summoning circle arriving, or maybe this was King Harold's throne room. Loki came in with a sword and just killed his damn father, and you see the throne with a giant chunk missing out of it right where King Harold's, like, head would be. So King Harold's sitting on the throne, Loki comes in like, Loki, my son, what are you doing? Ah! And then just cuts his head off, and there's this big gash in the throne because of that, okay? So I'm thinking, when Ripley was saying, hey, King Harold, he was all about changing the way Elbaf works. You know, the idea that we will trade with other nations. We will open up Elbaf. You know, we won't wage war with everybody. What if King Harold was naive and he opened up trade with the world government, and the world government was working with him, and maybe he was naive, or maybe he was straight up evil, and maybe they made an arrangement to structure this here, because I don't think they can just summon wherever. Like, the only reason that the Gorosei were able to arrive at Egghead was because Saturn actually went there himself and then made a summoning circle, right? What if King Harold was into some shit with the world government, and he was like, oh yeah, I'll draw a summoning circle for you in my throne room. You could use it anytime so we can communicate. What a glorious thing to do. You can teleport here to Elbaf anytime you want. We can make up trade relations. And the world government was like, yeah, Yeah, that's what it's there for. Yeah, sure. Not for invasion, totally. And then Loki is like, Father, we need to stop this! Ah! You know? And that's the end of the chapter. And that is also probably the last chapter of the year because we're going to go on Christmas break after this. So, what a way to end it out. Shanks' evil, hot twin brother. Who'da thunk it? Who'da thunk it? A lot of people, actually. It was kind of a theory for a long time. But anyway, wild chapter. Just, you know, we learn a little bit more about the culture of Elbaf and, like, the new generation of giants and the school and the library. Loki's getting catfished. And we got, you know, the end of the chapter here with, you know, like, 2 individuals arriving and, like, intruders in Elbaf arrive. Like, that's a pretty cool way to end out 2024, I'd have to say. Oh, my goodness. What was your favorite chapter of this year? What was your favorite thing that happened this year? Crazy stuff. Crazy One Piece stuff, right? But anyway, yep. I'm assuming these 2 individuals are going to leave the castle, and then, you know, the giants at the pub might be so drunk they might not even be aware that they're there right now. Maybe we'll have a scene where the giants are like, what are you guys doing here? It's time to fight. And then Dory and Bragi and all the giants team up against the Gods Knights, and we see firsthand how powerful the Gods Knights are, going up against, like, the giant warrior pirates, and they might just get devastated. You know what I mean? Like, the Gods Knights walk in and just like, this is the true power of the strongest knights in the world, you know? The world government's strongest soldiers. Like, let's do this, right? And we'll see what happens. Crazy devil fruit powers they might have, crazy hockey they might have, crazy swords. You know, Shanks' brother has a sword, and that's probably a Saijo Awazumono. It might be the pair to... Oh, what if it's like, because Shanks has Griffin, wouldn't it be cool? Because the swords look similar. What if they were like sister swords, right? Like Shanks has the Saijo Awazumono Griffin, and then Shanks' hot brother over here has the Saijo Awazumono Phoenix. Phoenix and Griffin, you know, 2 swords together. Like, that would actually be really badass if it was something like that, right? That'd be cool. All right, and then the mysterious woman, we have no idea who she is. I don't want to say Shanks' sister, because we don't know. We don't know. But we'll find out. All right. But anyway, thanks again, everybody, for another awesome year doing One Piece content on the channel. Tomorrow, on the 21st of December, from 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to like 9 or 10, I'm going to be doing my annual St. Jude charity stream. It'll be on the channel right here. Look for it later today. I'll put up like a video, like, you know, how many hours it is until it starts and everything like that. But that's always a fun thing to do. It's always donating to a good cause, so hope to see you there. Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. See y'all next year with the next chapter review. Teching 101, signing out.